Welcome to the podcast recording of Middle East AI News live for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024, brought to you by Carrington Malin, marketing for an AI-first world.
So let's dive into today's topic. In today's Thursday Deep Dive, we're going to be talking about Aramex's Future Vehicle Programme, under which the company pilots and deploys delivery drones, delivery robots, and plans to introduce a variety of new advanced autonomous mobility solutions. We're going to touch on the global advanced mobility sector, Aramex's history of innovation, Aramex's advanced mobility strategy, electric cargo aircraft delivery plans, and Aramex's other plans for drones, delivery robots, and more. I'm going to be joined by Angad Singh, Global Director of Innovation for Aramex. And I'll just give you a short summary of Angad. Angad Singh's career spans manufacturing, e-commerce, and logistics, with a recurring theme of business transformation and innovation all the way through. He's previously worked with Alibaba Group, Amazon, Fetcher, Rocket Internet, and he moved to the UAE in 2017 to join e-commerce supply chain specialist Fetcher as Director of Business Excellence and Product, before going on to lead the company's global operations. Joining Aramex in 2019 as Regional Director of GCC and Levant Operations, Angad was instrumental in building up the regional operations and driving increased reliance on data-driven decision-making. And he took his current global innovation role in 2022 and has initiated a wide range of innovation programs at Aramex, new product development projects, and advanced technology trials. And Angad also heads up Aramex's Future Vehicles Programme, which we'll talk about today. I'd like to welcome Angad Singh. Warm welcome to Middle East AI News Live.
Thank you, Carrington. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks very much for making the time to join us and talk about Aramex and its Future Vehicles Programme. Really great to have you here. We've heard a lot about the future of mobility and UAE plans to introduce passenger services using electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, drone delivery services in the region, but air taxi service plans have really stolen the limelight. And so now we get to talk about the cargo side, and I don't think many people have heard the story. So it'd be great if we could start talking about this in a global context and then sort of zoom into what Aramex's strategy is and the trials that you've had. Sound good?
Sure. I think air mobility is a very exciting frontier for logistics. There are multiple use cases of moving cargo or parcels between areas through air. Today, that is done by either vehicles doing long line hauls or even aircrafts in multiple cases, or even rail. But in the future, we're hoping that it is drones and this autonomous mobility, air mobility, under which we call under the drone program. See, for logistics, I think, and if you were to zoom out and look at this from a macro level, we know that the first use cases for cargo drones and these air taxis would be cargo, because of the fact that they don't have a proven reliability and safety kind of data demonstrated for it to be readily accepted for people to sit in it. So I think the natural use case is going to be movement of cargo and movement of parcels. And that's why we step in. As a part of Aramex's global Future Vehicle Programme, we've been exploring use cases under which we can replace these vehicles today, these aircraft today, with the drones. So it's all obviously got a lot of promise. There are multiple use cases like remote area deliveries, urgent deliveries over tough surveillance of certain areas on the way. There are multiple use cases, and these are great use cases that we have experimented with, and we'll talk about during the use case of this. The way we split the air mobility program is over air and sea today. Like you had mentioned, we have signed multiple contracts over the past year with potential partners. So we've looked at, we've already launched eVTOL aircrafts for last mile deliveries in Oman, and it's a live operation for over a year. That has given us a lot of data and intelligence on what kind of operations, what the drone operations look like in the last mile. And it's a real use case for us. We've been deployed because it was a real use case. I think that's what differentiates our innovation program from the rest out there, is we were looking to deploy. We're not looking to make press out of it. We want to ensure that we get this into the customer operations. So that's a clear differentiator. And post that, we did a few tests in the UAE. where we looked at similar last mile kind of eVTOL aircraft. We want to take that forward now. And this is where you've seen the signing ceremonies over the last few months, in which we're looking at high payload CVTOLs and eVTOLs. We want to be able to look at how we have incredible use cases for them. I think those are the more relevant use cases in our sphere, and over air and land. And those are some of the agreements we've signed. Yeah. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't really get much press that the most logical first step for these new air mobility solutions is cargo and logistics, for reasons that you stated, for safety and the many moving parts are involved in getting these operations off the ground. And that's added to when you add passenger the element to that as well. And I think most of the successful global case studies that we have at the moment, if not all, are around drone delivery, because that has arguably the least risk and the easiest to solve problems, although, again, there are a lot of moving parts. So just to be able to break this down in terms of the areas that Aramex is looking at and how you would categorize those: drone delivery and the longer distance electric aircraft, and then robotic vehicle delivery.
Yeah, so our future vehicle program is split into three: over air, sea, and land. Over air, we have short, low payload and low distance, low range, low payload delivery aircraft for last mile, which is something we've already launched. And then we look at CVTOLs and eVTOLs, conventional takeoff and landing and vertical takeoff and landing for cargo, and autonomous kind of cargo drones, which is again middle mile. These are high payload, so anything above, say, 500 kilos and long range, and even sea gliders, which are oversea, which obviously, because we've seen there's been a prominent investment for coastal cities and development of coastal cities, especially in our core area. And so it makes a lot of sense for us to explore alternatives for movement over sea. So that's over the air and sea. We also have on land, and this is a big deployment on our end. So over land, we have roadside bots. Roadside bots are essentially used in last mile deliveries as well. So we've deployed two kind of roadside bots. One is a single cabin roadside bot, which is point-to-point deliveries. We've deployed that both in KSA and in UAE. And multi-cabin, which is the first one around globally, which we were the first ones to deploy that, which was designed for Aramex packages based on Aramex package sizes and our customer requirements. Again, this was a roadside bot. This we have deployed over a year back as well for customer operations and customer deliveries across these two markets. I think the next frontier for us is on-road autonomous vehicles. We're looking to launch on-road and in-yard autonomous kind of solutions this year. We will launch in-yard solutions hopefully by the end of Q2 and on-road before the end of Q4. Now, that's the way we have segmented the program, and that's the plan on deployment.
Wow, that's quite ambitious. So I think it'd be great to take those different programs one at a time and just go into a little bit more detail. Before we do that, though, can you talk broadly about the reasons that companies like Aramex are looking at these new solutions and then the obvious challenges that need to be surmounted in order for this to happen?
See, I think the challenge, being responsible for innovation in Aramex is a big question. You have to ask yourself, when was the last big innovation in the logistics space or the supply chain space? And you have to look at that. When you think about that, the last big innovations in our space, which truly transformed the domain we're in, they were probably containerization, digitization, and motor vehicles. These were huge transformations, and leading innovation for Aramex, which is obviously, the market leader in the region for the products we play in. We have more than 600 locations across 70 countries in the world and 18,000 employees almost. So this is quite a large operation. And so being responsible for innovation, we find ourselves constantly asking the question, how are we going to define the next big transformation? And I think Future Vehicle Program is definitely has a great potential for true transformation and true kind of innovation in terms of deployment into this ecosystem. Apart from the Future Vehicle Program, we have 12 other programs that are running, which are again big transformations in their own right. We're hoping that collectively all of these products are the next phase of new revenue generators for Aramex, new products we can offer our customers for Aramex and so forth. And this will be obviously a delta between us and any of our other competitors within the region or globally as well. When I look at the obstacles and challenges, particularly to the Future Vehicle Program, they're quite a bit of them. And there's a long list. And it's a long laundry list, honestly. The way we look at it, there are obvious safety regulations and regulatory kind of challenges which need to be addressed. Over the last 2 months, we've seen autonomous vehicles in the US get a bit bad press because of the accidents they've caused and the people they've injured. There is going to be a time where a drone falls off the sky. There is going to be damage to infrastructure. There could be potential people who are injured or fatally injured because of these kind of deployments, and that will happen. I think it's important for us at this point to be able to create the processes and the products to be the safest it can potentially be, and the regulations to govern that. There's a lot of technology and integration conversations that still need to be had in terms of how these drones are going to be, what kind of traffic control and communication systems, what kind of collision avoidance systems do these drones have, or even these bots have. How is this going to be on one platform? How is this going to integrate with our technology and our transport management systems, as well as the regulators, kind of to have the broad purview of what's going on, what are the different challenges that they're facing today. So there's a huge list of obstacles and challenges. The only way to be able to come to be able to address these challenges is going to be having real data of operating these on the ground. And Aramex now has over a year of data of doing both drones and on-road bots, and experience of what it's like from a customer's perspective, experience of what it's like from an operator's perspective, and also dealing with regulators' experience with data, from a regulatory perspective as well, what kind of safety issues that are going to come in, what are the operating costs of this, is it cost prohibitive today for us to come into this, or is that going to be cost parity? One of the things that we can very proudly say in our bot program and drone program deployment so far is that there is cost parity between what we have deployed and our current operation. So it is not a huge financial burden for us to be doing so.
That's impressive. And of course, in the future, you can see more economies coming in. So that looks very good. On the regulatory front, because this is something that gets press every now and then, and there are a lot of issues that need to be overcome. And I think all of the trials across all of these different technologies in the region have gone ahead on the basis of ad hoc special approvals from authorities. Do you think that's going to remain the case for some time, or do you see things changing more quickly?
I see things changing. I think speaking to the regulators in the region, one thing I have to say about the region's regulators is they're very forward-facing and very supportive of any large-scale, even pilots or deployments, which will help transform the industry. That said, the regulations, even from a global perspective, is still unclear. I mean, you've got the West, who have given certain approvals for certain aircrafts, and even in Europe, you've got aircrafts that have been marked safe or safe to operate. But again, that's just the first step. Once the product is ready and certified safe, after that, how are you going to integrate with the provider, and how are you going to move those goods? What kind of air traffic control and communication systems are going to be in place? How is everybody going to be in the same platform? These are big questions that everybody has to ask. Again, a lot of people today, when you ask about drones, one of the key points is going to be very expensive to operate. I don't necessarily think so. I think regulations can play a very active role in kind of negating some of the costs that are being spoken about today. One of the biggest costs is these are autonomous kind of technologies, all right? Now, autonomous technologies still today, because of the regulations, require people in the back end to manage it. So let's drill down on this a bit. So suppose there's a drone in the air. Today, there is one operator behind each drone. Some regulators allow even 5 drones to one operator. So that's one manpower or full-time executive attached to 5 drones. I think in the future, the regulations based on the technology advancements and all that can move to 25 or 20 drones by one for one full-time executive. And that's when it starts making financial sense for companies to jump on board. With the current regulation, it might not make sense. So I think there is a long way to go. But regulators also need to realize it's not only marking it, deeming it safe. They also need to realize they play a huge role in making this a success and deploying this on a larger scale for companies to adopt it.
And also the devil's in the detail, isn't it? You mentioned that this really requires hands-on experience and the data to plan things moving forward and make things the most efficient and develop these regulations. And we've seen a lot of announcements over the past few years for drone delivery trials across the region, which hadn't really happened. And I guess some of that's due to planning.
I think it's not only planning. I think today, while a lot of people want to do drone deliveries and while a lot of regulators want to support it, I don't think a lot of companies really know what the use case is. Again, this is one of the biggest deltas between our innovation engine and the rest out there, is we have a set of real use cases ready for drones. So what we do when we talk to potential drone partners, which are like any of the top 10 drone player makers in the world, we give them readily a document in which we showcase the use cases that we have, and then we match their capabilities to the use case. So that is why we've been able to launch in Oman. So we matched a capability and a regulatory go ahead to a use case, and it matched, and everything was easier for us to manage. Like you said, the devil's in the detail.
Yeah, and all of this doesn't happen in a vacuum. So it might be a good point to break off a little bit and talk a little bit about Aramex's innovation.
Yeah, I mean, see, Aramex is a 40-year-old company now, and we are present across 70 countries, like I had mentioned. The Middle East, North Africa region is our core region. This is where we are a market leader in the products we play in. We're a top 3 player in Australia, in South Africa, and the rest of the countries we're through our agent and partner network, we're in about 50 more countries. So it's an expanding operation. We are moving from a regional powerhouse to a global. We have a mandate to move to a global powerhouse and be a global player in this space. So the journey from 70 to 120, 130 countries is something we plan to undertake in the next 4 to 5 years. That can only happen if you were to clearly differentiate and have products that truly differentiate you from the other players out there or the prominent players out there in these new regions. That is why innovation is critical. Innovation is critical because we have to be able to build these new products and processes and programs. So the Aramex is an innovation engine. What we do is essentially look at internal and external customer problem statements, ideas, and we translate that into products, programs, and processes. And again, the differentiator between us and the other innovation engine out there is then we will focus on deployment. And that is one thing that we are really keen on doing, deployment. So as a part, like I said, we have over 12 programs that are live right now. One of them is a future vehicle program. The other programs you could think about are crowdsourcing, out-of-home, automation, big data, virtual and augmented reality. We do a lot on AI. We have got probably some of the most mature AI kind of products out there in our ecosystem as well. Sustainability is a big mandate for us. We've got a huge sustainability kind of commitment in terms of electrifying and hydrogenizing our fleet. We look at partnerships, franchising, fintech. So there are a lot of fun programs that we do.
Yeah, these have really allowed Aramex to punch above its weight, haven't they? And I remember the first time I used the chatbot for parcel delivery. It was brand new, but very impressive.
Yeah, and it's one of the innovations that we had. I think when we launched WhatsApp multiple years, I think it was 4 years back or 5 years back. I think when we launched WhatsApp messaging, we were the first ones in the region to do so. At one point, we were WhatsApp's biggest global account because of the kind of transactions we were having on WhatsApp. I think we've obviously progressed towards our chatbot and our app from that point, and obviously matured this product quite a bit from that point.
You've been heading up the global innovation team for the past 2 years. Has the Future Vehicles Programme been a part of that for the last 2 years, or something's come in more recently?
So the Future Vehicle Programme was created when I joined this team. We conceptualized it again. We went back to asking ourselves, what are the true big transformations within the supply chain and logistics ecosystem over the last multiple years? I mean, if you were to take a micro view, what have been the big disruptions? And then we wanted to actively be a part of the next big disruptions. So this is how it's been conceptualized over 2 years back, and now we are plus 2 years into it, and we've been successfully deploying 12 plus products. It's been a successful output for this innovation engine.
And what was the first output of that? The first successful trial that came out of that program?
Oh, the first big trial was Oman. Again, what we did with the Future Vehicle Program is we structured it in such a way that we always knew which use case could be matched to which product. And once we had that list, all we had to do is then work with the regulators on getting them to endorse our plan. So Oman was where we launched our first drone, and very shortly after that we did bot trials in the UAE and then drone trials in Dubai. So that's where this program started. That was over a year back, more than a year back.
Yes, and hats off to the Omani government for getting involved and making it work from their side. And I think the last year, 18 months in Oman, we've seen a lot of changes on the tech front and innovation front, where the government really trying to enable those programs and making new things happen. Practically, what is the service in Muscat and how does that work?
So the use case in Oman, what I can tell you is that it's over tough terrain. It is a terrain which we used to address with vehicles, and then we progressed with replacing it with a drone. It's over a tougher terrain, so it's across mountains and into a coastal area, so which would essentially be quite a drive for a courier or a champion, as we call them. And instead of that, for us to use a drone and it was a remote area. It was not an area that had enough volume density for it to be serviced every day and make financial sense for us to service. And instead of passing on a cost to the customer, what we did was offer it instead with the drone delivery at cost parity to what we offer and the rest. So it was a big win from that perspective. From a regulatory standpoint, I think the Omani regulators, much like the regulators in the rest of the region, were quite supportive, and they obviously micromanage the whole process, and with trust, they've been able to manage this more remotely as we go.
Yeah, and this is the first beyond visual line of sight drone delivery service in the region, right?
Absolutely.
Which is very impressive. Are we likely to see more drone services launched as a result of that experience and the working service in Oman?
I think not only Oman, you would see more drone services being deployed across the GCC this year. I can't go into too much detail, but you would see in more countries, not only in the GCC, but in our network, where you would see at least 3 or 4 more deployments this year for drones, depending on regulatory go ahead. We are quite ambitious in making it happen and deploying them into customer operations this year. And we hope that this is like a good way for us to get into that.
It's 3 or 4 new drone services potentially.
Potentially, yes.
And as you mentioned, these will be fulfilling use cases that are being clearly defined. So you're not simply replacing motorbike delivery representatives. You are looking at those use cases where drones can be most effective and deliver the most value.
Absolutely. It has to be at cost parity. That's what makes it deployable. Today, unless it's a very urgent delivery or a delivery or a movement that requires, which is over very tough terrain, a lot of customers in our space and the retailers in our space are not ready to pay that cost delta for it to move in a more expensive fashion. In fact, everybody the way the economic climate is, everybody is looking at optimization. So they're looking at lowering costs. I know for a fact that some of the big global logistics players have shut down their drone program over the last year because they don't have the use cases for it to be at the cost parity. They do not have it today.
Yeah, so the fact you've been able to do that really sort of ensures the life of the program.
Absolutely.
So let's switch to cargo and sort of larger vehicles, because you signed 2 deals towards the end of last year, one with Aramex and one with Regent.
We signed 3 deals last year. So we signed with the Aramex for cargo drones. We signed with Regent for sea gliders over the sea, and we signed with Odyssey Aviation for VTOL heavy payload cargo drones as well.
Yes, of course. What can you tell us about how this all fits into your mobility strategy?
I think middle mile mobility for movements of cargo and parcels is an amazing use case for us. I think that's where it will make a lot of financial sense for us to deploy as well. So we were looking at partners who could address that use case. I think if I were to zoom into it, so Aramex obviously has conventional takeoff and landing and can address use cases for middle mile or even cross-border eventually for cargo movements up to a certain tonnage. That definitely is a use case for us today. When it came to region, obviously the development of coastal cities, and we also use sea to move goods across the region, across coastal cities in the region. Some of the use cases are obviously on the western front of Saudi Arabia, where we have a lot of coastal cities and the development of new coastal cities along that route. And the Sea Glider did provide us with an opportunity to be able to quickly deploy potentially a Sea Glider, which is obviously a technology that, from what we understand from it, would be cheaper to operate, and because of the kind of technology, it is cheaper to operate for us, and potentially even quicker in terms of transit times. All of these obviously have an advancement in transit times than what we currently have, which is again a delta for us, for our customers. When it came to Otis was conventional takeoff and landing. This would mean that it would require less infrastructure than the others. And that's obviously very interesting to us for office-to-office middle mile movements as well. And this is how it fits into the Future Vehicle Program. Each of them have a very specific and unique set of use cases that we want to deploy them against. And that's where they fit today.
And we're talking about quite sizable payloads, aren't we?
Absolutely, above 500 kilos in most cases.
Wow. And the time frame for introducing these different cargo services?
Well, I would like to have it today. I think a lot of it depends on how the regulator and the product readiness is like. In reality, I'm assuming we would see some trials, hopefully, maybe a trial in 24, late 24 or mid 2025, and deployments 26 onwards.
Right, which still means they could be world first by that point.
I absolutely think so. I think while there have been a lot of announcements, it remains to be seen who would deploy and how would they deploy at what cost.
Yes. And initially, such solutions would be used in country, I guess, from many points of view, including regulations.
Absolutely. I think regulations would not easily allow cross-country today or cross-border today, as we put it. We would like that, especially for some use cases cross-border, especially in the GCC with the distances. It makes a lot of sense, especially for some countries. It does make a lot of sense. But yeah, I think it would require two regulators to come together. And again, this would only happen when it moves onto one platform, which I touched about earlier, which is about being on one kind of platform where you can visualize the movement, the traffic, the communication, and other kind of systems, so that you can manage this product much like air traffic control today, but a drone traffic control. So that there's still a way to go before something like that is set up.
Yeah, and there have been regulators and aviation air traffic control entities looking at such technology for quite some time.
I think it's a very good business idea as well for someone to create.
Bringing in these new solutions, what do you think the impact will be? What impact is Aramex looking for from Dynamics and Region and Otis solutions?
I think the clear use case, like I said, the clear benefits are going to be quicker transit times, at scale, lower operating costs, and flexibility. I think one of the key aspects of this kind of product is going to be flexibility. They offer us flexibility for different routes and to handle operations at our scale. Again, for operating at the scale at which Aramex operates at, which is over 100 million parcels in this region only. And that scale, there's a lot of complexity which can only be managed by us building flexibility and agility within our operating network. I think drones bring us that and drones and these kind of sea gliders bring us that operating agility, and also help us with other elements which can be passed on to customers, like transit times and potentially lower costs at scale.
Do you have a view on whether you'll use any third-party services in the future, or whether it will be all Aramex?
Well, I mean, we're not mandated to only work with our own operating systems. We're quite open to integrating with others. One of the other benefits which I was mentioning was obviously in being in line with our sustainability mandate. A lot of these are electric operated and powered, and so they would obviously drop a lot of the carbon emissions and help us meet our carbon emission targets and our carbon neutrality targets, which is again a huge. Sustainability is also quite central to our decision making here at Aramex. So this is like definitely a huge addition towards that kind of ambition.
You've also got delivery bots, and you touched on it before.
Mhm.
Can you describe them and what the use case is?
Delivery bots for us was an interesting one, where we started looking at delivery bots because they offer. If you look at the industry on the whole, right? If you ask the questions, what are the pain areas which the world is seeing today? You have got labor crunch, which is a big pain area. You've got consistency and you've got costs of labor going up. In addition to that, if you ask, like, if you look at data, like what is the average age of a driver in Europe? It's 52. All right. Now, we are lucky in this region to have the much lower average age than that. Not much lower, but a lower average age than that. But it's not like we're going to be immune to that problem statement in this region, or even when we expand to new areas globally. Like we face this problem in Australia in terms of a labor crunch and the average age of drivers. We wanted to look at how do we move to a model, like we had said, which is going to be truly disruptive in offering a consistent and a reliable delivery service autonomously. And so that's why we looked at delivery bots. Now, delivery bots can be quite a pain for regulators to allow on road, because obviously there's a lot of traffic, there are a lot of people who cross the road, there are a lot of practices which are not safe on the road. And so putting another complexity like an autonomous kind of vehicle on the road can be quite complex to regulate unless it is proven to be safe, which none of the vehicles can do that today. But moving forward, we thought that a good way to do that and go back to the reliability and the operation disruption that we wanted to do could be for roadside bots. So we did deploy single cabin roadside bots, and then that progressed towards us creating a new and the world first multi-cabin robot, which we deployed, which is essentially a bot which has got 8 to 12 cabins in it. The use case is simple, that it goes into compounds and areas which we have multiple of, many of in the region, to go in and perform a delivery in that area. So now imagine a courier, instead of going and dropping off shipments in each house in a compound or even in each flat in an apartment building, instead of that, he drops off a bot in that area and moves on to the next area. Drops off a bot in that area, moves on to the next area. So while this courier or this middle mile operator is driving and dropping off these kind of robots in these areas, there are delivery services happening with these kind of autonomous bots. And what this is definitely a huge kind of transformation given what we do today and what the industry does today. For us to trial it, we had a very simple criteria for success, which was obviously had all the operating metrics like kind of productivity per hour, kind of customer experience, what the customer feedback would be like, what kind of regulators, what kind of safety metrics do we have in place, what kind of operating hours do these bots have, and all of that. And we were quite successful when we launched both these products. So the multi-cabin bot has been deployed for over a year, and we are only scaling up now. And every time we pitch it to a new customer, they ask us to deploy it yesterday. So it's us now being able to, we are behind the eight ball to deliver on that kind of customer transformation ambition. And that's where we are today. We're just deploying bots as we speak.
Wow, impressive. And are these autonomous?
Completely level 4 autonomous. So we start off at level 3 and then we progress to level 4, and we've kept it at level 4 because we do require interventions. I mean, you have to expect this to be like the time when someone saw an aircraft for the first time. Everybody saw it and was, I mean, at that point of time, there were no mobile phones, but imagine that happened today. So everybody would take the mobile phones out. Everybody would try to get close to it if possible. And so that happens a lot. When our bots have been deployed in certain areas, we've had people stop the bot, touch the bot, trying to take a photo with the bot. And this requires manual intervention. This requires us to ensure the safety of those people. So that is why we've kept it at level 3, and then we progress to level 4. And that's where we keep it.
And these services are running in the UAE at the moment, right? Or are they also running in elsewhere?
So they're running in Saudi as we speak. In UAE, we just halted the program because we're going to a bigger deployment. So we are building the bot for that deployment as we speak. So we hope to be live in UAE again by the end of Q1 with a couple of these new multi-cabin bots.
So at that point, you'll be running autonomous delivery services in 2 countries with bots.
Absolutely. We'll be the only ones doing that in this region.
Do you see that scaling up to other countries, or do you think it's most important to get the
I
experience of
mean,
scaling it up in Saudi and the UAE first?
Saudi and UAE are some of our biggest geographies, so we went here. I mean, we went here first. We should have gone somewhere else, maybe. We went here first, and we've been really successful in launching them. And there've been no safety issues. There've been no issues which have been big enough for us to stop the program. So we've been able to break through the glass and launch them. So we want to be able to address our customer requirements. So as the customer requests them, we are launching them in any country. We're quite agnostic as to where we launch them. We're not blocked by certain areas or governed by which areas to launch them, and we just go where our customers want them to be.
So Aramex is the first and only in the region with a program running like this with delivery bots. Is it also the only current drone, the only beyond visual line of sight drone delivery service?
Yes, I think there have been pilots and there have been other kind of conversations, but no one has truly deployed.
Yeah. And then, yes, your plans for the cargo side are also impressive. So a lot to look forward to. What are your expectations of the technologies over the next 2 years? Because all this stuff is developing very fast. What would you like to see change?
I think the way we're classifying these technologies, the next gen technologies, as we put it, are into two. One is in-house. Well, that is something we can do in-house. I would say two are community kind of innovations, which are like you've got products like blockchain, which are coming up, which are obviously community innovations. Yeah, blockchain cannot be successful unless there is a whole ecosystem that adopts it. In our case, maybe the regulator like customs, our customer and us, and the end consignee have to be on that system for it to be successful. So that's an external kind of community innovation and internal innovation and internal product technology. So a lot of the products, apart from the 12 we're running today, there are a pipeline of 9 more products that we're looking at. 3 of them are community and external innovations. And for that, we definitely look at partnering with the ecosystem in general, be it a regulator, be it even a competitor. I mean, we don't consider them competitors. We consider them potential partners for new use cases. And for in-house, we're looking at being on the forefront of, like I said, a lot of new products, which we are looking to launch this year. We hope by the end of the year, we have a full suite of 20 products which have been deployed into customer operations, which are quite disruptive in their own right. And that's where we stand today.
We didn't touch on skills and manpower here. So what's the impact of the drone services and the bot delivery and potentially the cargo electric aircraft? Are you building a team to run these different services, or is it being integrated into existing teams?
It's a great question. I mean, we are looking at it definitely from a skill enhancement point of view. So we're running training programs in-house. So, for example, in Q4 of last year, we landed a large-scale AI training program for in-house employees, and we kept it open for employees to come in and join. And we were oversubscribed because of that. Again, that stems down to the fact that we want to develop those capabilities and skill in-house. But for some very peculiar skills like drone and bot management, which require you to have a clear understanding of sensors and understanding of what kind of LiDAR, what is LiDAR, what is radar, what kind of communication systems would this require, what kind of integrations would this require. That's a very different skill, and I think that's a skill we would look to hire in the market and to operate these bots and drones as well. That's a skill we would look to partner with at this point.
And I guess that all of this sort of wealth of knowledge that you're accumulating and the experience of running these different services in different countries makes you an ideal partner for smart cities around the region.
We do a lot of, I mean, we do partner with smart cities across the region, and we look for more partnerships as well on that accord. I think today a lot of smart cities might look at it as something they want to do themselves. But again, I think with maturity, it's going to be, you're going to see these teams and these teams realize that this is again a community and an external kind of innovation, and this would require an ecosystem to adopt it for it to be successful. And we are definitely keen and game to partner on this.
And this is a great place to be based to trial these new technologies, because there's such an appetite for trying new things and implementing the latest technologies. And new innovations. What's your forecast for taking these outside the region and running them somewhere else?
Yeah,
Do you have your hands full?
We do have our hands full today. It's again where our customers want us to be. We are seeing a lot of interest coming in from some of the other markets, and we'll shortly be looking at expanding these programs into other markets. Again, it doesn't need to be the Future Vehicle Program only. It can be where you'll be surprised by some of the deployments we make on the Future Vehicle Program this year in terms of our market expansion. They are very, very mature and very developed markets where we're launching them this year. So, I mean, based on the pivoting of the success we've had with the deployments here and the data we've had here, we've been able to showcase that to a lot of the global customers and customers across other geographies who have asked us to come in and deploy there. So we're like we said, we're behind the 8 ball now, looking at deployment, but we will make it happen.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts to share?
I mean, we like I've said, we want to be on the forefront of the next true big transformation within this domain, and we, based on the deployments we've made and we've had, we look forward to being a big partner in making that happen.
You've been listening to a recording of Middle East AI News Live for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024, brought to you by Carrington Malin. Thanks for listening.